Marilyn Jesmain, I'm 94. And nobody calls me Marilyn because I'm not a Marilyn. I'm a Jez.
How long have you been living here out in the Star community?
26 years.
Okay, so this is the Star community, which is way out there. We took some video footage on the way out to show we're behind the Cerro Tres Orejas, and Mike Reynolds owned all this land, and you could only buy the house. You couldn't buy the land the house was on.
Yes, 20 feet around, and he had a list. You could have one dog, one car. Oh my God, the list was, like these gated communities you couldn't spit. It's like, but then Mike Reynolds got into trouble. Everybody was suing him and everything. So, and everybody moved away except me. That he gave me my deed. He made everybody else buy their property, but he gave it to me.
Okay.
But everybody had moved away, and then they sort of slowly bought little pieces of property, and so. But people, as I said, I can name maybe 10 people in my 26 years here that have come out here. I'm going to live here forever. It's so beautiful. 1 year. They're city people. They don't know that you have to haul water, that the roads close, that it gets cold, you got to chop firewood. They just don't know. To get rid of tons of stuff to take to the food pantry. Oh, God.
Oh, man.
I am cutting back.
This place is beautiful.
That's my mask collection over there, and these are behind where are you?
Oh, wow, look at the...
This is the petroglyphs that are down below. Just painted them up there in my mask collection.
Wow.
So I don't have a back door right this minute.
Okay.
So we'll go upstairs.
You okay, Papa? These are some big, steep stairs.
My bed.
Oh, nice. Yay. Look at all your books, too.
This is my women's library. Downstairs is
wow.
archaeology. This is all my women's books up here.
Nice. Can you do it, puppy? Can you do it? Good job. Wow.
Yeah, I have a pretty nice view up here.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
And you were telling us that you built this house yourself?
Yeah, the two U's were there. The tire U's were there with a roof on it. And I was in Alaska. I was an adjunct professor up there, and I'd been teaching, and my spring classes were canceled, and 24 hours of darkness. And an old friend of mine who lived actually in this house next door down here flew up and said, "Come on down." So I came down, and this was in November, and this place was for sale for $8,000. In those days, with Mike Reynolds, you only owned the house. You didn't own the land or anything. So, and I moved in. Moved in and started with a shovel and digging.
Wow.
Slept on a dirt floor and dug the house out and just kept going.
So you were on your own at that point?
Yes. Well, Kay Coyote she lived in this house next door. She was on her own, and shortly after I moved here, she left and moved to California, which we're still in contact.
Were there many people living out here at that time?
There were quite a few. I think, yeah, and we had a nice little group. It was November 1999, so really, yeah.
Exactly 26
yeah.
years ago.
Um,
So if that was 26 years ago, you were like 70 at the time? Or?
I got my PhD at 69. Well, it's interdisciplinary. I have degrees in art, and then I got my master's in Northern Studies, and then my PhD was interdisciplinary. The top two are Fairbanks, and the bottom one is Pratt from Brooklyn, New York. Yeah.
Where were you born?
Upstate New York. My family was my folks donated the oldest house in Northeast to the state in 94. They donated to the state. It's now a working museum farm. The Maybe House, if you look it up on the YouTube, they have concerts and it's a big deal. So that was my family home.
And you were saying your ancestors go all the way back to Manhattan Island.
Oh, well, Annika Jans, this one here goes back to the 9th century.
Wow.
Count Egmont, yeah.
Wow.
My mother wanted a girl. I'm an only child. And she wanted to make me this foofy little frilly thing. And it didn't work. And I can remember one time when I was having a hard time when I was at Pratt coming home. And he took me up into the mountains, up into the Adirondacks. It was winter, and on snowshoes, and we built a fire in a snowbank. And my father taught me this terrible love I have for nature and animals and stuff. Where Mother wanted me to be a lady, and I went to finishing school. Would you believe it? Those were we were above everybody because we were old Dutch families. So we were better, but you don't let anybody know who you are. You just are better than everybody. My mother was the most prejudiced person I can think of,
And then where did you raise your family, your kids?
I was the first, I was teaching at a girls' camp in Maine. I was the first certified women's guide in Maine. And that would have been 1953. And then I was going to Pratt, and I was the first and only woman to graduate with a degree from Pratt. It had always, when I got a scholarship to go to Pratt, but it was only a certified school, and it turned into a degreed school the year I was there. So I became the first woman to graduate. I've had a lot of strange firsts.
Yeah, that's
I don't know
cool.
why.
You're a pioneer.
You
really are. You're like a pioneer.
Yeah, I've done a lot of strange things.
Yeah.
Teaching up there in Maine. These are odd. You want odd stories? I have a lot of odd stories. This was a very elite. I taught canoeing. As I said, I was a guide and so forth. I had a 9-foot real birch bark canoe that I taught in. We did the Allagash circuit up there in Maine. And we had, this was a very elite summer camp. And one of the girls was Maria Magdalena de Habsburg. So I got to meet her mother. In fact, I was after the camp, I got to go to her house. So I've had dinner with the Habsburgs, Queen Ileana. I have her biography up here. So I've had dinner with royalty. And then I had been teaching sailing and was working for the General Electric Company. And when I met my husband, and he was a nuclear engineer, and we were transferred to Idaho Falls. He worked he put together the nuclear safety system on the Triton. So we lived in New London, Connecticut for a while.
How old were you when you got divorced?
45 years old, I suddenly woke up, and I had realized that for my entire life at 45, that I had been attracted to women, not to men.
Okay.
And So this changed the trajectory of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. And so
It
you
was
guys
like I woke up, yeah.
Yeah.
And it isn't that I didn't love my husband, and I you know, he was a good convenience. He did what all young women do: get married, have kids. Yeah, but I didn't sit in the house and bake cookies and raise babies. I got up.
Well, in the era you grew up in, there wouldn't have been any lesbian role models. There wouldn't have been women that you knew who were like maybe
Oh, I
birthday
suddenly
size.
knew a lot of them.
Suddenly.
Yes.
At
In
45
fact,
or
they
after?
told me. They told me. I had been active in the Humane Society up there, and we had gone to one of these meetings, and after one of the meetings, two of the women invited me to their house, and they were sitting there holding hands, and I'm sitting like, what's going on? And they said, but you are too, but you just don't know it.
Really?
So I went, and Judy Dawson, who she was I had done substitute teaching. She was a music teacher. She was with Van Cliburn when he won. Do you know who Van Cliburn is? You do. Yeah. He was the first American to win the Tchaikovsky Russian thing, and she was with part of it. She could play Malagueña with her feet on the piano and just go crazy. Well, anyhow, I went to visit her after I had talked to Kelly and Connie, and she said, well, yeah, I am too. And so we used to go to Firth is a very Mormon community in Idaho. But totally Mormon, but with a town of probably a population of maybe 2,000 with 3 bars. We used to go into the bars at night because I didn't want to be home. My husband, I was still married, and he was home drunk, so we went to the bars. And she was trying to teach me to play pool, and we were kind of stupid, and she was just potting around. And, and then some guy'd come over and challenge her because she was, I couldn't play at all. And she'd let him win a couple games, and when it was $5 and then it was $20, and then all of a sudden she'd let loose and just pop them. And I can remember over in the corner was this old upright piano with half of the keys missing and everything else. And she'd go over there and just pound that thing. Oh, God, she was something else. Judy Dawson, God. Crazy.
So your awakening kind of aligned with starting to meet other women that were also
Yeah.
gay.
Yeah. Well, everyone seemed to know I was, and I didn't know. I just suddenly woke up. Okay.
That's amazing. So you really had this sort of midlife awakening, and then you hit the road, it sounds like. Kind of just went for it. You knew who you were and what you wanted from life, and you went for it.
But I was, I became a dig bum. I got odds and ends of jobs. I worked for on the Fort Peck Indian Reservation. I've lived on several Indian reservations. Put together first all Indian newspaper, Watonin Wapiti.
Where was that?
Minnie Two Shoes was the editor.
Minnie Two Shoes?
Yeah, this Fort Peck is in Montana. It's in the northeast corner of Montana. And I worked there for a couple years, and
That's when you built that house?
I built this house after the store, after the store collapsed, and I got the hell out of there and sold it and moved up there and built the cab. The little cabin on the right was there, and then I put the extension on, built a barn upstairs. But in order to afford it, I had to go out and get jobs, and I worked for the Indian Education Department in Helena, and so forth. And then I got the job at Fort Peck, And came back, and I was working for a newspaper in Sun Valley, Idaho, and was in a club. I'd always been fascinated by Native American history. And they offered a job for 1 month, a paid job. So I gave the last 3 horses away, my Morgans away, with the idea to get them back whenever I could, which I did. And bought this dilapidated old Airstream, this thing up here. And for 5 years, I traveled all over the West, all over, name it, and I've been there. Southern California to Casper, Wyoming, and all over, never knowing whether I'd have enough gas to get to the next gas station. And I often, stopped and picked herbs so I'd have something for supper. It was kind of I look back, those are the best years of my life. Just fantastic. But at the time, I was so worried about where my next job was going to be and whether I was going to have enough gas to get there. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. I've had a motto all my life, and when a door opens, go through it. You talk to people, and they have, well, the timing isn't right. Maybe next year, maybe, I don't know. I'd have to, yeah, and they don't, and they miss. Something happens, I'm off. Like selling everything and buying that old Airstream, and it came the end of the month. It was weird. I thought, God, I just gave away my horses. I sold everything. I had a 1 month job, paid job doing archaeology, which was a dream of my life. This was the last day of my job, and I'm thinking, where am I going to go? Jenna Gaston, who was the head of the Department of Transportation archaeologists, came over to me and said, you want to work for the highway department? I surveyed all the highways in Montana that whole summer, and Jenna and I are still, and we were driving down because we do sections of the road, walk them, and then get back and you get in the car and drive on, and we were driving along, and she said, there's a group of people having a picnic down in Boise, Idaho this weekend, a group of lesbians. And I said, what? And she said, yeah, I'm a lesbian, and I knew you were too. It's just like, is it written on my face? Although I hate that as a label. I'm not a lesbian. I'm not a straight. I'm just me. Yeah. In 1981, that they made it a law that in order to do any work on federal or state land, you have to have an archaeological clearance. So they were hiring anybody to come out and work. And I'd volunteered on some sites, but I took a chance for this one job, as I told you. And then after that, one fell right after another, because they were hiring anybody for these jobs. So, like I said, 2 days here. Once the job finished with Jenna Gaston for the highway department, I worked at the Calico site where Leakey and Ruth Simpson and it's finally come up. Leakey and Ruth Simpson, who was head of the University of California, had discovered this site and dated it at 75,000 years. And well, in those days, nothing was older than Clovis man, And so they kicked him out of the United States. He couldn't get a job anywhere. This is Louis Leakey. And he went to Africa and, of course, discovered Lucy and became famous. Well, the Calico site is after White Sands down here, they're finally re-looking at these old sites. It's crazy. Archaeology can be very stick in the mud. Oh,
And so you were on the road, you were in Montana, you had your own shop, you built your own home, then you were up in Alaska for like 15 years, it sounds like you were in Alaska.
I had done a job in Wyoming, and worked with this woman, who was madly in love with this guy who worked for the Forest Service in Alaska. Well, I was 70 at the time, because or no, I was 65. 70. I was, I have to remember. I had just, when you turned 70 in Alaska, college was free. So well, I'm jumping ahead here. I sent in my application. I was 60 years old, to a job in Alaska. And Mark said he had a bunch of applications, and it just so happened my application was sitting on the top. He said, I'd have never considered you because it's a rough job. I mean, survey up there is wild. Anyhow, his wife walked in and said, hire her. She'll outdo any of your 20-year-olds. And he did. So I worked for them, and when I turned 70, school was free. So I went up and went back to Fairbanks and got my PhD at 79. Yeah, in fact, when I was in college, the head of the department wrote a book with a chapter on me. I've got several books that people have written about me. They're over here.
Yeah, I definitely want to see those for sure. I love how you've saved a lot of things. It makes me feel like I should save more things. Like, it feels nice to now be in your home and see you surrounded by your life.
All the stuff that you're looking at came from the secondhand store or the garbage. When I lived in Sun Valley, and this is my archaeology, I think, even before I was an archaeologist, dumpster diver. I love dumpster diving. I mean, everything I own. Well, maybe I bought that. But it's either secondhand or, I love garbage pits. I love them. I love them.
People throw a lot away.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
But this is the problem. What do I do with this stuff?
Right.
Nobody wants it. That's why I'm getting rid of all this stuff. I mean, tons and tons of books I've got. Who's going to want this women's library behind me? My grandkids aren't, they may never move here. I don't know. When I died, half of my daughter has got half of it. But she'll never move here. And my grandkids are all in Alaska. They're not going to come here. So who knows what'll happen when I die.
Yeah. And what's been the hardest thing for you about living out here?
Oh, this is the greatest. I mean, come on. The hardest part was living on the road in the Airstream. Even though that was one of the best years of my life, yeah.
Yeah. So even though you've had to haul water, build all your own home, take all these rough roads, you wouldn't say it was a hard life for you.
No,
It's a good life.
that's physical work. That's the mental times, like with a grocery store, and then not having a home and not knowing where I'm going from. Those were the hard times. Breakups here, and it's the mental part that's hard. No, the physical work doesn't bother me. It's getting harder as I get older. If I think of it, I'd like to find someone who could come out and help me clean house, because I just can't keep up.
Yeah.
But whether you can get anybody to come this far, I think you just have to have the tenacity to don't mind being alone. Listen to your neighbors that know how to live out here.
Yeah.
This is, I mean, living living off grid. Living off grid. You want to live a long life? Move out here. Get out of the city. You got fresh air, eat good food, don't get your McDonald's and crappy food, and learn how to live with nature. Just live with nature, and animals they're my friends. They're my family. Door opens, do it. You look at people who really make something of their life. A door opens, go through. A door's opening for you. Watch.
Well,
Don't say, "Oh, well, I don't have enough gas in my truck and I got to get new tires and yeah, if it opens, go through it. If it's wrong, another door will open.